Good morning, everybody. My name is Kuldip Sandhu, and welcome to our webinar entitled Digital Transformation and How Hard It Can Be. We are going to be recording this webinar session. So two reasons for that. One, so that we can improve our presentation skills for the future. And secondly, anybody that hasn't been able to join, that registered, they can view the recording at their own leisure in the future. As I said, I'm still letting people in as they sit into the lobby, but it's great for you to be able to join us this morning for the Digital Leaders session. I'm going to just I'm still admitting people, so I'm going to now final two in. I'm going to now talk you through the agenda. We're going to do quick intros to myself and Shyam, my colleague with me today. We've got the presentation will last around 50 to 55 minutes. We've actually got some case studies and we've got some poll surveys that we'll be going through. And please make a note of the website address and the event code there, because you'll be using that on your laptop or your mobile device, or even if you're in the office on your desktop, to administer the survey. And we'd love you to participate in that as we go along. Just a little bit about me, and then a little bit hand over to Shyam to introduce himself. My name's Kuldip Sandhu. I've been in business and IT, business transformation, IT transformation, now digital transformation for something like 25 years. I've worked in the public and private sector. I've worked in industry and in management consultancy, and you can see some of the organizations I've worked in there. And more recently, over the last 4 or 5 years, I've been building my own brand, IQS, Innovative Quality Solutions, and I've been doing a number of interims assignments as well as consultancy to help organizations digitally transform. And as you can see, there's been some significant public and private sector work. Most recently, I was the head of technology at the Excel Convention Centre prior to being turned into NHS Nightingale. And that I hope that is sufficient for you to be listening to some of my experiences that we're going to be talking to today. Shyam, over to you.
Thank you, Kuldip. So good morning, everyone. My name is Shyam Valand. I am a digital IT transformation consultant with about 20 years of experience of driving change across business and IT. You can see I've worked in quite a few public and private sector organizations. Much of my experience has been on the pointy end of technical change, driving change in IT. And over the last 5 years, I've been sort of moving from sort of what I call old school IT service management into DevOps, trying to find a way to bridge the gap between the two. Got a few certifications under my belt, just always keep learning, just trying to learn more about all the different techniques that are out there to help drive change.
Thank you, Shyam, and thank you for joining me this morning and sharing your experiences with me. So let's just look at the detailed agenda. I'm going to kick off by setting some context around digital transformation, talk a little bit about the disruption that COVID-19 has had on accelerating digital transformation across sectors, and maybe some of the blockers and inhibitors. We want to hear from you, especially around your main drivers around digital transformation. And digital transformation means many things to many people and organizations, and we're keen to hear what is driving your organization around change. We're going to talk a little bit about, are you ready? Are you prepared? Where do you start? Where do you start with digital transformation? And again, we're going to gather some of your thoughts for a poll. And then we're going to switch tact a little bit, because whilst we're proponents of change and you can bring in technology and processes, I think one of the biggest inhibitors that we've certainly seen is how you bring about change from a people perspective. And we're going to be talking about how some of our experiences and some of our case studies where we've actually seen positive change and what's the best approach for it. And we'll talk about Big Bang to iterative change as well. Um, and finally, we have some case studies, and we'll have some kind of wrap it up with some key webinar takeaways. And if we have time, if we get to the hour and we have some time and people still around, we hope you are, we'll be doing some Q&A. We'll open it up to Q&A. I'll unmute everybody and we can do a few questions, take a few questions. Absolutely happy to do that. So just setting the scene, pre-COVID, as I was talking to many senior executives in industry, in public and private sector, one of the biggest challenges they were dealing with in their market sector was the rapid adoption of technology. They were saying to me that we can't keep pace with the proliferation of technology in their sector, in their organizations, and these digital natives were coming along and disrupting them. And you can see on the left-hand side that that's played out, where you can see, it took 68 years to get to 50 million users of the aircraft, where it took 19 days to actually deploy Pokemon Go game. So that rapid change. And if you think about the big players in the marketplace, the big market cap organizations in the world, they're all technology organizations, from Google to Microsoft to Alibaba to Alphabet, and the story goes on. And they're big tech organizations, and they've created digital platforms that really enables change in their organization. On the right hand side, I wanted to show you Martek's law, because as the rapid adoption of technology increases exponentially, a lot of organizations are really unable to absorb the change at the same pace, that exponential change. And it actually, what happens is that it creates a gap between the fast pace of technology adoption and the slow pace of change. And that's why organizations have to reset and reevaluate where they are. And our experiences have shown that to create a high-performing agile organizations, there's 6 key steps to address that gap. You need to have an organizational design that's really all about multifunctional teams, having behaviors and a culture that embeds a change mentality, that focuses on decision making at the lowest level, and making sure people are engaged. I mean, the surveys you can look at in the world, 70% of people in typical organizations are disengaged, and really creating a culture and environment where they can thrive from a personal perspective, from a growth perspective, and enabling the vision and the purpose of the organization. And to go with that, you need the right ways of working. And there are many, many, many ways of working, especially in IT, that I've seen over the years, from COBIT to ITIL to TOGAF to a proliferation of frameworks. Now, the most common cultural framework, or I'd say mindset I've seen, is DevOps, where you're really thinking about how to bring about agile change. And on top of that, you need the right leadership and management driving the change to ensure that you're achieving the outcomes that the business is trying to achieve in the marketplace or in the sector. And on top of that, you need the appropriate level of governance and funding to ensure that you are continually.
Pokemon Go took only 19 days.
Could we please make sure that everybody's on mute, please? Thank you. Sorry about that. And just to kind of reframe digital transformation, digital transformation isn't just about technology. Sorry, could I just make sure that everybody is on mute? Thank you. And finally, just in terms of how the accelerated pace of digital transformation, as I said, it's not just about bringing in newest, latest gadgets or devices. It really is looking at your business model. It really is looking at your institution or your organization, saying, are we delivering, as we can see in this slide, business value to your customer? And the customer can be, it could be your student, it could be your citizen, your resident, or it could be your shareholder. Whoever that stakeholder is, what is the business problem that you as an organization are solving in your community or in your sector? And how are you transforming, changing your ways of working or your business model to cope with addressing that business problem and delivering value. And that requires having a strategy and a vision, and then developing your future competencies. And I think COVID-19 has been the burning platform for change. I just wanted to show you this survey results that came out in February this month. Sorry, the last month. Sorry, we're in March already. And if you look at these 375 participants or respondents, they said, well, what is the biggest driver for change? And you can see it's not been the CEO, CIO, CTO. It's been COVID-19. And just a couple of examples on that. When I was at Excel, we had to move from live events to now delivering hybrid events, moving content online, getting event managers and salespeople to create digital content at pace. Another digital change has been everybody moving and working remotely. IT departments had to rapidly increase their number of laptops, their software licenses, underlying storage, so that they could push out equipment so that people could work from home at pace. And that was done in a very agile fashion. There was a compelling, it wasn't a command from top down, it was a COVID command. We have to do this to make sure that the businesses we're working in survived. And I think in the world that we live in at the moment, a very volatile world, it's the organizations that can rapidly change and adopt new ways of working, or engaging colleagues, citizens, and colleagues in a rapid way are the ones that are going to survive and innovate. And I think that's pretty much a major data point from the financial crisis in 2008. The organizations that innovated quickly survived and succeeded in the long term. And I think we're going to see that again as we go forward, as we come out of lockdown and go into the post COVID-19 era. Just to kind of wrap up my definition of digital transformation, I think it's really now how organizations and institutions can really reinvent their business model so they can enhance that customer experience, enable growth, aid efficiency, and use technology as a source of competitive advantage or differentiation for their organization. But the challenges around this are many, because whilst we can, we've got lots of technology and it's being adopted, how do you implement it? How do you make sure programs and projects are implemented successfully? And that really requires a people-centric approach, engaging stakeholders, engaging people, making sure they can learn and unlearn so that they absorb what's coming and they get on board with that adoption, that change. And I think, as I said, the change has been so rapid. It's how do we ensure going forward people can absorb that change in a rapid way. So just to give you some, just kind of contextualize some of the digital technology trends that we've seen, and I'm sure you've seen these in your organization. Machine learning and AI is now becoming a mainstream in many areas. It's still got work to do around data bias and so forth. Big data and analytics has emerged. Cloud computing is becoming mainstream. Computing everywhere. The Internet of Things has emerged. Cybersecurity is still a challenge for us, and that requires cultural change as those main drivers from your IT organization as well, so that they can absorb those technologies, enhance customer experience, be able to work everywhere, and make sure that the IT department goes in tandem with the change, and it makes sure that IT delivers those many initiatives in a proactive, transparent way, so their stakeholders are trained and consulted as we go along. So digital transformation is really about reinventing your business model and bringing about technology innovation at pace. So I'm going to stop here because we would like to get some of your input. We're going to run a survey. We're going to be using Slido. On your laptop or your mobile device, or even if your desktop, you've got a little barcode there that will take you directly to the Slido poll survey. There's a code there, #8681. and we'd love you to answer the following question that I am going to now share with everybody. And Shyam, I'll need you to make sure that you can see the survey question, please. And do you want to take us through that?
Yeah, it's come up here, Kuldip.
Yeah.
Okay, so the first question for the survey is, what are the main drivers for digital transformation in your organization? So you've got a few choices. One is increasing customer experience expectations, is increasing competition to your business. There are internal business needs and drivers, a lot of pressure from your business stakeholders. There's a need to increase the rate of innovation in your business or to increase revenue. So please go ahead and select one of the options. Okay, this is interesting.
So I'm just scrolling down a little bit because make sure everybody can see the various options there, Shyam. Yep. We've got 18 respondents, and I know that at least 30, 40 people on the call. So could I just please urge everybody to, we'll give it a few more seconds, definitely, to encourage you to answer. If you're a consultant and you're working with various organizations, just base it on maybe one of your main clients and what you see as their driver. Oh, great, thank you. We're up to 22. That's looking great.
I think a few of our attendees are probably just getting onto websites to access the survey.
Yeah. We will give you time. Right, we're up to 26. That's at least 3/4, so I'm feeling very happy at the moment. Okay. I think we'll let people carry on voting. But Shyam, has any thoughts from what you can see so far?
This is kind of reflective of of a survey we did 2 or 3 months ago, Kuldip, just was it Q3 last year?
Yep.
One of our webinars, and it's pretty much in line, right? So we see a lot of pressure, a lot of demand from customers. So they're used to getting a certain level of service from some of the big players out there, the FANGs, the Facebook and Amazon and so on. And now either they're working within an organization or they're interacting with an organization. In the public sector, there's this expectation now that they expect a certain level of service. And that's what we're seeing. There's a lot of pressure there, especially now that we're all in this COVID era. You can't see someone face to face. You have to get online in some way. So there are frustrations there as well, isn't there? So yeah, that's
absolutely
pretty much in line with what we're seeing here.
What I would reflect on is absolutely, I think customer expectations and needs have changed.
Very big pressure for that, yeah.
Yeah,
and of
COVID.
course, yeah, and of course things like reducing costs, internal business needs, again, because they need to grow the business, or they're getting the pressure from the customers. Those are sort of second and third, and of course rate of innovation. So if you're feeling if you're in a competitive industry, you have to innovate to try and keep up, let alone compete, right? So yeah, that's kind of what we're seeing across the industry as well. So it's not just limited to public sector, private sector. This is across the board, which is an interesting result by itself.
And I was just the thing I was thinking as you were talking there, Shyam, was we have got probably a predominant public sector audience today, and I can absolutely kind of resonates with me is the resident citizen experience from a local government or a student experience from HE, or if you're delivering stuff from a cabinet, home office, how do you ensure that your organization is digital, meeting the changing online digital needs of our customers, whilst balancing the books? Because COVID-19 has not only changed expectations and needs, but it's also has caused financial challenges. And how can we reduce costs? How can we reduce costs? Technology can actually be an enabler for enhancing customer experience, but it can also help reduce costs as well through automating business processes, RPA techniques, and data techniques as well. We'll move back into the presentation, but thank you everybody for that. Really appreciate it. We're going to go back into the presentation and we'll come back to the polls. Please don't move away from Slido because we will be coming back into it and using it for the future surveys as well. Okay, just bear with me as I get back into sharing my screen again. I'm having a little technical issue getting back into here. Let me just. Shyam, you might need to pick up the presentation on my side because you can hear me, can't you?
I can, yes.
Okay, but I'm not able to get back into the Zoom call. Oh, hold on.
Okay.
Bear with me. I'm okay. Sorry. Yeah. Apologies. Can you see my screen now?
It's coming up. Yep. That's it.
Slight technical hitch. Back into the groove. Thank you for that survey. Shyam, over to you to some of your thoughts around complex digital transformation.
Okay, so this is really continuing from the first couple of slides that Kuldip went through in terms of setting some context, right? So the thing here is how do you start your digital transformation journey? You know, are you prepared for it? And the first thing to point out is you have to figure out where you are just now. Having a map isn't going to help. You have to figure out where you are on the map on your journey, and that's the first point. Moving on from there, it's looking at establishing some key building blocks and foundations for your transformation journey. So without going into too much detail here, is things like what are you doing in terms of your planning for transformation? You know, what's your approach going to be? Do you have a roadmap? Do you know what your architecture is going to be for your transformation, your technical transformation piece? And moving on to transformation leadership, and this is actually quite one of the key ones, right? Because remember, it's not just about the people side, but it's also having the right leadership and the right vision in place to lead the transformation. So it's some things like, you know, what's your return on investment going to be? How are you going to manage expectations? So, you know, are your customers expecting a Rolls-Royce interaction service, but you can offer them a vanilla Volkswagen type service, you know? So it's those kind of things. It's understanding, being sensitive to what your customers need, understanding what the external drivers are, whether it's COVID, whether it's competition in the market, and so on. And then you go on to thinking about how are you actually going to deliver this transformation? How are you going to drive it through? What's the solution going to look like? You're going to have some sort of reporting in place. You can actually track progress. If you're engaging with suppliers, how are we going to manage them, bring them on board, and make sure they're helping deliver the end vision, that an outcome you want. And of course, the last thing is organizational change management. You know, what's the operating model going to look like? If there is change made to your internal culture, what's that going to be? How are you going to engage with your staff, your employees, your stakeholders, whether it's internal or external? What are your existing capabilities from a change management perspective? So there's a lot of things for you to consider and plan to take stock before you start going down a digital transformation.
Thank you for that insight, Shyam. That's great. I'm just going to talk through a couple of areas that your initiatives or things that you can do to really kickstart the journey that Shyam has talked about. In our experience in our transformation programs that we worked on, we've seen two things work. One is you can do a kind of a readiness assessment. But one of the things that's really worked well for us is doing digital transformation simulation training. And digital simulation training is where you take a bunch of staff, it could be 5, 10, 15, and this can be done virtually as a single player, to take them into a safe environment and give them the ability to make strategic and operational changes in a context of a marketplace. So the gamification tool that we have allows you to effectively to be an airline in a market sector, and explore key factors about how can you bring about stability in your organization, how can you bring about agility, how do you improve customer experience. And as you play these plays, you can see the impact on your business from a customer experience point of view, from a profitability, from a revenue perspective. And you can then explore best practices and tools like automation, service management, SRE, continuous integration, deployment, and best practices like DevOps and ITIL and Kanban, which are all things that people want to understand but can't understand the impact of that. And what the simulation training, which is a real excuse me, somebody's banging away. Thank you, whoever that was. That was not part of the webinar, I assure you. And as I was saying, this simulation training is a virtual experiential learning experience. And what it gives executives and staff is the ability to explore how these best practices, these success factors can play out in your organization, and take that learning and apply it into your organization. And it also brings people together. It breaks down silos. It brings people together to understand people's different perspectives and what they've learned. And it's a facilitated workshop. It's 1 to 4 hours, number of rounds of plays. Let me just quickly show you how that works. You know, we go through an observe phase, a review phase, and then a consider and implement phase. As I said, there's a number of cycles. It's a very interactive digital experience, and it's led with trained facilitators. You play as an airline scenario, and it actually has that effect of really learning the component parts of digital transformation, because as we said in my opening brief, it's very complex. Here's some screenshots for you to have a look at in those various phases. In the observe phase, you're looking at the impact of your strategy or your plays, and thinking how working through how that's impacted your IT, your business from a financial and a experience perspective. You observe, you review using various dashboards, you review the outputs of your plays, and then you reconsider. You have certain revenue or money or capex, if you want to call it, and then you can work through in the consider phase. What plays do you want to play? Once you make those plays based on your previous experience or your previous round, then you buy those plays and make it, and it's a cyclic experiential learning experience. So that's digital simulation training. We've seen that working very well, and we'll share a few case studies we'll share with you as well. One of the other things that we've done very successfully is help organizations to understand where they are. As Shyam explained, you know, at the beginning, you need to know where you are. And so it's only when you know where you are, your current state, that actually you can determine your future state. And in some cases, both this technique, i.e. Doing a kind of readiness assessment where you look at strategy, leadership, culture, automation, lean ways of working, to underlying measurements and feedback. And you can see 5 levels here in this maturity model. Effectively, you can go from a basic level to a managed level to a defined level, up to a kind of value adding expert level, to becoming mastered and being a digital organization. It's really important to understand where you are so that you can define, people say, your future state or your target operating model. And this framework really helps with that. So what we're advocating here is using the training as a simulation training. You could do that in parallel with a readiness assessment, and they both complement each other. And it really does depend on where you are on your journey. You could be halfway through or a quarter way for your digital transformation, and you've lost track. You don't know where you are. You don't know what the right play is next or what's the right maneuvers. And the simulation training or the readiness assessment can just baseline you and give you that baseline to see where you are, so you can then go on to move on into the right direction. So two real diagnostic and training tools that we've used for many clients to help us organizations move forward with their digital transformation journeys. I think, Shyam, it's time for another poll. again, if we can go back into Slido, the number for the Slido code is the same, 8681. There's a barcode there. I'll flip over to the second question as well. Just bear with me as I do that. So the question there, over to you, Shyam.
Gosh, someone's already jumped in here. So the question here, the second survey, is how far along your digital transformation is your organization? So, some of the attendees here, you may not have started. Some of you are en route, so you're probably midway. Some of you are thinking about it, so you're doing some planning at the moment. And of course, some of you have actually nearly getting to the point of completing your digital transformation journey. So yeah, those are the 4 options for you to choose from.
So as the people are continuing to select their choice, what's your initial thoughts there, Shyam?
Actually, it's good to see that there's quite a few of our attendees today. I think the large proportion are midway through the journey, which is good to see. We've got a small fraction who are planning, which is also good to see. We've got a even fewer minority, 8%, who are nearly complete, which is astonishing.
Yeah,
really amazing. And actually, it's even good to see there's nobody who's actually even started yet. So there's people on the journey at some stage, whether the planning stage, a large chunk in the middle, and a few at the front end. So you're sort of your leading edge type agile organizations. So that's good. So I'm trying to just wait and see. We've got 26 response as a moment. So we'll see if there's anybody else who's going to chime in.
And what was going through my head as you were talking there, Shyam, was that how do you know that you're at the end of your digital transformation journey? How have you has your customer satisfaction increased, the NPS score by 80, 90, 100%? Is your revenues great? Is profitability good? And that's why I think sometimes organizations, and especially if you're midway or even planning to, it's where can you use those tools that we mentioned, the readiness assessment, or can you use the training, the simulation training around digital transformation to see, have you got to where you have, or are you stuck in a particular area? You've lost momentum for whatever reason, or as we know, COVID-19 has come back and we've had to readdress the balance, look at your strategy again.
Yep.
You 5 steps forward but 2 steps back with COVID, right? It's about readdressing where you are and doing those kind of retrospectives that we talked about.
I know certainly some organizations out there, their transformation plans have taken a hit. What they were planning to do last year, this year, they've had to cut down their timelines, increase timelines, because they weren't expecting COVID to hit.
Absolutely. I think we shall move on.
Yeah, I think so, yes.
Do you want to say
thank
anything
you,
else?
everyone. No, this is good. Yeah, this kind of reflects what we're seeing as well in the industry just now. Okay. So thank you, everyone, for your contribution here.
Yeah, I'll just flip back to the presentation and just need you to give me the okay that you can see the screen again.
Yep, it's come up. Thank you.
Okay, so just a little bit about change, and I'm going to hand over to Shyam to share some of his wisdoms around change management. We all know that we've set the context, we've had some of your feedback, and we all know that bringing about change in organizations is not easy. And I think, you can bring in technology, software, hardware, move to the cloud. There's all, and each of those initiatives and programs and projects are difficult to do. And then sometimes the difficulty is about how you ensure you get people engaged, how you ensure people go with you on the journey. And I think it's really important, as you can see on this slide, to understand the S-curve for change. And I'm sure many of you have seen this before. People in their own personal and work journeys are at different places at different times. Some people become very anxious when they don't know what's coming, and they can become resistant to change. Some people are very warming to, or very easy to kind of move forward with change, and that's a real positive. And in grabbing those early adopters or innovators is important. But some people are fearful. Some people get resentful. Some get disillusioned. And it's really important to understand people and stakeholder needs across that S curve as we bring about that change. And I'm going to hand over to Shyam to talk a little bit more about that. Oh, I need to make sure that Shyam can actually talk to us. So just bear with me as I bring him back. You
Cool.
should be able.
Thank you. Yep. Thank you, Kuldip. Okay. So this is interesting. So I think in IT and in technology, we forget that change involves people. And some organizations go for grand change programs and just say we can do all these things in set time scales. But the thing is, you have people who are enormously complex. Every individual has their own needs, their own emotional engagements with what they're doing with the organization, why they come in for work, and so on. And it's very difficult to make an assumption and say, yeah, we can just cast a wide blanket across and assume everyone's going to step up and adopt change in an equal way. And we've seen this in the DevOps industry, where this graph I'm sharing with you has been used several times in quite a few DevOps conferences I've gone to, where there's two approaches you can take with transformation. You can go for what we call the Big Bang approach, where you have these massive programs of work with big PMOs and lots of project managers, and you sort of impose the change onto your organization. And initially, you might find that there's a slight increase in morale and competence. But you get to a certain point, usually around about a year, and then people start getting fed up. It's like, oh, more of this to come. And actually, you see a drop in the morale across your employees, because the change just seems to be constant. They're maybe not seeing as much of the improvements to the way they work or to what they're doing. And it takes a while, to get out of that dip. Now, the other approach that we see working very well in the industry at the moment is doing small incremental changes. So little bits of agile changes. So you do something, you pick a team that is willing to adopt change, who wants to be in the forefront of making some change happen in their particular area, and you give them the safety to go and make some changes in the area. And what you do is, every time you see a change or the change is complete, you take stock of it, you look at the results of it, and you make a show of it, right? You cascade out to the rest of the organization. Say, look, we made this change. This is the results. These are the benefits, and you keep cheerleading. Is the best way to describe it. Is every time there is an achievement, you actually, cheerlead for it. So everybody sees it. They recognize the value and the benefits of it. People who are reluctant to adopt change eventually get the message, actually, this isn't so bad. I can see my colleagues around me benefiting from this. Actually, I think it's worth my team or myself trying to do something different. And this is a journey. That's the main thing here. It doesn't happen overnight, and you have to take a medium-term view as to the kind of things you can actually achieve in your organization. Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Do you want to expand on that in the next slide as well?
Yes. Yeah. So one of the things we're seeing as well is, we talked about incremental changes, and what we want to do is to let people choose. You'll find there are teams, there are individuals who want to be part of the journey at the start. They are what we call innovators, and you'll also find people who are early adopters. So these are the people who are eager for change. They have the appetite for it. They have the curiosity for it. They want to try something new, and these are the kind of people you want to choose to start on the journey first. Give them the opportunity to adopt the change, provide the results, demonstrate the benefits to the rest of the organization, to say, yeah, we've done this, we've achieved this, and share the experience as well, so that their colleagues can see it's not such a big scary thing after all to be able to change. Because remember, there's a lot of psychology that goes into this stuff as well. But when your peers are doing something different and they benefit from it, of course the rest of the organization will say, yeah, okay, this isn't so bad. Let's be part of the journey. And there are different tranches. So there are innovators, there are early adopters, there's the early majority, which is when you get to the point where you get sort of critical mass and that then sort of influences the late majority to start wanting to be part of the journey. You'll always get laggards, and that's okay. You shouldn't really pressure them. They'll be there sitting back to watch and wait and see what's happening, and some of them will convert and others won't, right? There are people out there who just plain don't want to change. They've been doing something for the last 20 years. Doing anything different is just too immensely complicated and scary for them, and that's okay. You just have to give them some space to either adopt or find something else to do.
Yes, absolutely, Shyam. I just wanted to reinforce some of those messages. I think a lot of programs that we've worked on, I've seen a lot of time and effort spent on those laggards at the beginning, and a lot of energy, and actually it's probably not wisely spent. We're not advocating you ignore them, but you really need to have the purpose or the strategy and the vision clear, so people get bought into that, and then you create that safe environment, that project. You pick that project where you can really make change happen with the innovators, and you can see it mushroom out and get the adopters. And I think the other thing I've shown, which is shown on the left-hand side, you can see a little graph there. I think it's also important to make sure we let people learn and unlearn. And actually, other thing I would say is, download. There's usually a lot of change fatigue, as we've seen in organizations, and we just need to make sure that people can understand, or as you drive change, that you understand why change hasn't worked in your organization before, and make the right maneuvers. And people, if you're going to go to new ways of working, you've got to give people the opportunity to learn, and unlearn their older ways of working. Any thoughts on that, Shyam, for you?
That's absolutely true, Kuldip. Getting people to unlearn the way they've done things before is very, very difficult, right? It almost is a reflexive thing. And getting them to change to something new, to adopt something new, can take time and practice as well. And then people have to be given the space to learn these things. They need some support, so you don't just go and drop things on them. I think a good example is, with COVID, with the schools, with organizations having to work remotely. I know, teachers suddenly being told to use Teams or Zoom, and it is a challenge, right? It might seem simple to people who are technically proficient, but to others, it's like, how do I use this thing? And again, I've seen too many stories of teams being imposed onto people without any sort of guidance to say, this is how you set it up, or this is how you use it, and here's all the functionality. And you might think it's a simple thing, but actually, to many people, it's been a challenge to use a simple tool like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, but there's a lot to be said for helping people learn how to change as well. You can't just expect them to adopt a rapid pace of change. It has to be slow and gradual, as you can see from the left-hand graph.
Mm-hmm. I think we're gonna get our audience to participate in our third and final poll. Same thing again. Let me just switch back over to our poll survey and show you the question. Shyam, can you just let me know that we've moved on? And okay.
So
Okay?
this is an open-ended, yeah, you can see it. So this is an open-ended question. So what kind of words describe pain points that you're experiencing during your digital transformation? So it looks like most attendees here are somewhere in the journey. It'd be good for you to share some of your pain points. So the way this works is you put the words in and it comes up in a bit of a word cloud, so we can see what the hotspots are in terms of some of the words that people put into their into their response.
Right, lack of engagement,
Good.
culture,
Yeah.
leadership, frustration,
Mhm.
culture change. We anticipated those ones. That's great. Is it, when we say leadership, it's probably having the right level of an active leadership. Yeah,
Mhm. I
frustration.
think that's a key word, Kuldip, because that's active leadership, isn't
Yeah,
it?
yeah.
Thank you.
Resistance.
This is good. It's a good response. So culture is coming up a couple of times here.
Culture and leadership way ahead.
Mm.
Buy-in. Yeah. Wow, that word culture. It comes up every time. It's just. What's your thoughts, Shyam? We've got how many people? 20? No, sorry, not 20.
Not quite 20, not quite.
Close,
But
not quite.
2/3, yeah, roughly 2/3 of the other respondents. Yeah. So culture is coming up as a big word, but I think resistance as well. Second large, leadership.
Echo staff, trust, frustration, empowerment. Do continue to vote, so you'll add your words.
Change requirements, yeah. Trust and empowerment, yeah. Scared, yeah. Scared, defensive, fear, yeah. Scared, fear of change, right? If you're not explaining what it is that the outcomes are going to be, what the potential benefits are going to be, giving people the space to learn, to change. Failure is okay as well. You know, very few organizations give people the space to allow failure. It's one of the DevOps principles. You know, you're allowed to fail as long as you fail fast and you learn from it. There are some digital technology organizations out there who ask teams who've tried something and have failed to actually stand up and talk about it, right? And make a thing about it, as not in a bad way, but as in a feedback loop to say, yeah, we learned from this. This is what we're going to do different next time.
So that's wrapped up in the culture and being
It is,
given
yeah.
a safe environment to
Exactly.
to experiment, create a minimal viable product, be empowered with decision making, so that if we did fail, right, I did make that call, right, but we've learned tons from it.
That's it, yeah. It's about the psychological safety, I think, is a key word. That's a word that comes out of it. We see this in Agile, we see this in DevOps, and it's back to the leadership. If your leadership aren't providing you with that environment to try things, experiment. Okay, so we're seeing a large number of people now. We're up to 23 of the attendees
Okay.
responding to the survey. So yeah, the big words here, as you can see, culture comes up a couple of times. Leadership is another large keyword here. Resistance to change, which yeah, I can empathize with in the public sector, because it's back to how it's promoted, how it's communicated, how people are engaged with to adopt change, to accept change, and so on. Fear, yeah, of course, that's going to be part of the resistance to change. Being given the time to adopt change, to accept change. Yeah.
Okay. So I'll switch back to, I'm going to show you some results on our surveys in this area, which kind of complements this, hopefully. So here's a couple of survey results that were carried out in December last year and January this year. And based on what I've just seen, it absolutely mirrors what you said.
Yep, culture's come up, hasn't it, a couple of times, as the biggest the biggest challenge. And we see this, right? We have the old books, you know, like Kotter, the famous saying, you know, culture eats strategy for breakfast, and it's absolutely true. But yet we keep forgetting about it when we implement change, when you do transformations.
Yeah, and you know, the culture piece is it's about mindset, having leadership, proactivity with leadership, providing environments to adopt and change, and empowering people, and that's so critical. Absolutely. So thank you for your results, because it just adds another fantastic data point to everything that we've seen, and that's why we wanted to do this webinar. Me and Shyam wanted to do this webinar because we really think a people-based approach to transformation is what needs to happen in all the organizations that we worked in. So let's Shyam, maybe should we move on to case studies where you can talk about some of this?
Yeah, this will sort of pull everything together we're seeing from the surveys and some of the things we've been talking about today. Okay, so I'm going to talk about a recent transformation I was involved in, and this was for implementing a tool called Servicenow in a public sector organization. So Servicenow, as some of you may or may not know, is a IT service management tool. It's usually used for logging incidents, but actually it's a lot more capable than that. It's one of the cutting edge tools out there in the sort of the IT service management space. So the objective here, the scenario here is this tool had to be implemented in a large public sector organization with about 12,000 staff spread across the UK. This tool included functionality like a self-service portal for staff to use, built-in automated workflows. So this is things like if a member of staff requests for a certain type of service, the tool would drive the workflow to make sure that service was delivered to the requester at the right time. And the last piece of functionality was something called a Federated Cmdb, and this is a configuration management database. And this database is really the hub and spoke of any good IT service management tool implementation. In this particular client, this is a public sector organization. They wanted this CMDB would be used by a number of different teams, not just for operations, but also by the digital teams, by the security team, and of course the ops people as well. So they were doing the phases of implementation in addition to or in parallel with the technical implementation of the tool. There was a very large people-centric element, and these I'm just going to call out some of the things we did at different stages of the program. So during the initialization phase, we engaged with a number of stakeholders. We built a stakeholder map. We identified who all the different stakeholders would be across the organization. When we went into the training phase, we provided training targeted to different groups of stakeholders. So some people absorbed training through webinars. Other people wanted real face-to-face sessions. Some people like to be able to drop into clinic to get feedback on provide feedback on certain things. And of course, you have the usual program steering group providing feedback as well from the senior stakeholders. When we got into the pre-implementation phase, so this is when we're getting very close to going live with the tool, the service desk, so this is the help desk, where sending out messages, comms on a monthly basis, and little newsletter emails to say this is where we are, this is where the program is, this is when we think we're going to be ready, this is some of the functionality, here's what the self-service portal is going to look like, here's where you can access a video to see a real-time demo of the self-service portal, et cetera, et cetera. And we also started getting testing being done by various stakeholders. So we're not just limiting to IT, we're getting some of the people who'll be using this tool in different scenarios to be able to come in, participate, get their hands on, because then they can see for themselves what's happening, and they can then feed back to the teams and the colleagues to say, yeah, I use this tool, actually it's pretty good. Or they provide feedback to the program to say, actually, this is quite clunky, we don't like the UI, or its stuff isn't very intuitive, and so on. So this is really good feedback for us before we get to the point of committing to go live. Once we got to the implementation phase, there was still a period of settling in. So we had everyone providing feedback on how they're getting on with using the tool, providing clinics, ways to have chats with the program functional leads to say, yeah, this is working, this isn't working, there's glitches with this, the flow for certain functionality isn't quite right, and that'll help so people can actually get a chance to have a say at the start and also provide feedback as we go through the journey. The outcome of this was a very successful implementation and no real dramas in terms of adoption. It was that the tool was widely adopted across the organization.
Thank you, Shyam. I'm just going to talk a little bit about some of my experience in the public sector as well, around using simulation training. So, in my career, I've worked for, as you can see in the organizations below, I did the IT transformation program at Coventry City Council some 10 years ago. I've worked at British Transport Police, and I'm working with a large housing organisation, as you can see below. And in each of these organisations, we really use simulation training to help the adoption. So the thing that came through the survey was the leadership, by getting buy-in for the leadership for change, thinking about how we can change the culture, and the simulation training really acts as an enabler for change. And what I mean by that is that the staff, for example, at Coventry City Council, we're going for a major insourcing and restructuring program, and we needed to develop ITSM service management processes. And when we took them on this service management simulation training, what we did is we empowered them with the way to change. So we play through the gamification, the various rounds that we played in the scenario in a safe environment. We showed them that you can build a knowledge base, you can build instant management processes, you can liaise with the business, you can prioritize, you've got people together, so you break down silos, enhance the communication. And that really, and that was a whole day session. And what that gave the staff was the ability, at the end of the day, they walked away energized, and they were able to go and then apply some of that learning in their organization. So what we were able to show as we were going through the rounds, how that improved customer experience, how that improved the business, the agility of delivering IT and into the business and so forth. They could see the path for transformation. They could see, and that just engendered buy-in and support. And I've continued to deliver IT service management simulation, and we now develop the digital transformation simulation training. It's just the next generation of simulation, because digital transformation encompasses ITSM, DevOps practices, and so forth, as you can see there, and it really allows people to understand what they need to do, potentially the plays that they need to make in their working world, so they can make the change happen. And that really does resonate, I think, with some of the challenges that we've seen our audience today to show around cultural leadership, buy-in, breaking silos. And this is a real game-changing a product, not only a product, but service that we help organizations to give them the kickstart to make change happen. With that, I'm going to kind of wrap up in our summary and some of the key takeaways from this webinar. One, I think, point number one is COVID-19 has accelerated digital and business IT investments, not across every sector, but those business cases will now be scrutinized. They will be scrutinized not only for how it will enable growth and value, but also how can you make the organization more effective and efficient and enhance the customer experience, irrespective of what sector you are in. Whilst we're predominantly talking to public sector audience here today, that using digital and IT investments to reduce costs but also increase customer experience is going to be predominate for quite a while. I think we've showed you two things that can help you wherever you are in your digital transformation journey, be at the beginning, middle, or end. You can validate all the great things that you've done through a readiness assessment to show your level of maturity in your organization, or you might want to use it as a way to create a baseline to determine what your future state could be. As I said, the simulation training really provides that experiential learning, team building, breaking silos, thinking about working cross-functionally so that you can act as learn how to act and behave in a digital organization and bring about that catalyst for change. I think I hope Shyam agrees with me. I think IT functions really need to align with the business. They need to be on board with the digital agenda, and there's IT departments and functions need to continue to change and adopt and align for that future transformational cultural mindset that we're engendering in this presentation today. And finally, just to say that there's plenty of data out there, and we can share this with you if you want. High-performing organizations have achieved significant benefits for adopting digital change, speed of delivery, enhanced visibility of projects, programs, increased customer satisfaction, enhanced staff engagement, reduction in risk, and efficient IT operations. We need to bring some of that learning from the private sector into the public sector, I think, so that we can accelerate some of the programs that we're all embarking on. So that was the kind of key takeaways. I hope you found this enlightening. I hope you. I really appreciate the feedback that we had with the polls. I think they were very revealing. Shyam, any thoughts from you?
No, I think, yeah, thank you everyone again for your interaction. I think we've got a Q&A session coming up here, Kuldip.
Yeah.
yes, I think some of the results we're sharing with you as well is, you're not alone in this with these challenges. Everybody else is having the same challenge. It's not unique to the public sector. So yes, and that's where we come in to help.
And what I've done is I've allowed everybody to unmute themselves. If there's a burning question, we're happy to take one or two.
Hi, Kuldip. So, overcoming cultural issues for change is assisted by proper engagement and ownership of change from the coalface.
Yep.
But how do we educate senior leaders to work with staff rather than dictate to staff? I totally get that they need to actually outline where do we want to get to, but surely the guys sort of like, who are in that space day in, day out, know how we achieve it, and it gives them much more feeling of investment and involvement.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely agree. Who was that? Sorry, by the way.
Phil McClure.
Hi, Phil. Nice to meet you. Yeah, absolutely. You need the leadership to provide the cultural context and set the scene for the change, and they've got to be bought into it. And as I was trying to say there, Phil, there's a couple of things that you can do. Getting it. This simulation training has really opens eyes for senior leaders to understand and explore what the art of the possible is. And the second thing I would say is, if your leadership is succeeding you or helping you or not, because there should be enough in the organization to see in metrics and data and measurement to see if the organization is working or not. And you can see it through lots of measures: people leaving, lack of support, lack of buy-in, and market forces. Market forces will make your organization change, force you to the change. So, I think you also have to be very brave and call some of this out. You have to call some of this out in the right way, so that you highlight the challenges that you might have at the most senior level. And I'm not going to give you the right way of doing that, because it's a difficult call. It has to go to the right level, to the right level of person who can make that difference at that right level, at that senior level. Shyam, you got any thoughts as well?
No, you're absolutely right that there's a lot of challenge. We're seeing a lot of cases or example situations where the senior leadership team just delegate out the change to everyone else. And a good leader is one who leads by the front, who is engaged, who's visible, and we see that time and time again, right? And there is a bit of a learning, I guess, for a change for the senior leaders to follow, and that's part of the reason why this simulation comes in. It is an eye opener in terms of what leaders have to do as well. This is not just come up with the idea and just delegate out to everybody else to execute.
Yeah. It's not something that's done overnight either, but it takes time and persistence and so forth. Thank you for the question, Phil. It's a great one. Anybody else? We'll take one more. I'm sensing that time is up. I think I think just for me, just another thank you for listening to us. We're very happy to share our thoughts. Please get in touch. There's our contact details, and just thank you for your time again. Shyam, anything from you?
No, thank you everyone for participating and listening today. Hopefully we've given you some insights, and of course if you have questions, feel free to reach out to us.
Thank you again. We're going to now stop sharing, and I will bring the webinar session to a close, and thank you again. Bye-bye.